This program is supported by Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro Northern Cement, Ahon, Bangon, Sulong, and SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. U.S. President Joe Biden declares a major federal disaster in Kentucky as emergency workers search for survivors of the ferocious tornadoes that killed dozens of people across several states and left towns in ruins. Omicron has killed at least one person in Britain, according to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, as he reveals that he launched a large booster program against the variant. And Canadians could be ringing in the new year with a fifth wave of COVID-19, according to the country's top doctor, warning it today. And Thomas I. Likeness will give us the details.
The disease control restrictions.
And the Iglesia de Cristo held a simultaneous blood donation drive in Thailand and Vietnam. Our EBC correspondent from Thailand and Vietnam, Just Diona and Shirley Navaja, will later give us the details. First in our news, rescue and recovery teams are now digging through wreckage in communities across the central United States. A tornado outbreak killed dozens of people across 6 states Friday night, and most of the deaths were reported in Kentucky. President Joe Biden called the rare late-season burst of twisters in the U.S. heartland one of the largest storm outbreaks in American history, and the state governor, Andy Beshear, warned that the search in a candle factory facility in Mayfield, a town almost completely wiped out by the twisters, may be in vain, admitting another rescue may not happen there. Take a look.
Years, so that we read. The devastation is unlike anything I have seen in my life, and I have trouble putting it into words. When it was safe to travel this morning, I flew to Mayfield. My first stop was that candle factory. 110 people working in it at the time the storm hit. They rescued 40. There's at least 15 feet of metal with cars on top of it. Barrels of corrosive chemicals that are there. It'll be a miracle if anybody else is found alive in it. A downtown completely devastated. From there, my dad's hometown of Dawson Springs. Population, 2,700. They're going to lose a whole lot of people. 1 block from my grandparents' house. There's no house standing. There's no house standing, and we don't know where all those people are. This was 4 different tornadoes, and I'm told we're actually going to see a little bit more on that hit us, including one that touched down in Arkansas and then stayed on the ground for 227 straight miles, which we believe is likely the longest in U.S. history. Folks, 200 of those miles were in Kentucky. We are ground zero, and I know this community is has been hit really hard.
This is Kentucky's most devastating tornado event in our history.
I'm monitoring the situation very closely since early this morning. This is likely to be one of the largest tornado outbreaks in our history.
Didn't really think that it would hit. I thought maybe the wind would get up, but we've never had anything like this here. Never. The courthouse is torn up. It's all torn up. All of Mayfield is down through there is tore up bad.
I had it for 38 years. A family business. It's a mom and pop store. My family, I raised my family here. All my kids worked here. It was just, this is our hometown, and it's just devastating. Everybody's lost everything.
Meanwhile, at least 6 people died in an Amazon warehouse in the southern Illinois city of Edwardsville, where they were on the night shift processing orders ahead of the holidays. Emergency crews worked through the night into Sunday at both locations, and FEMA agents and Red Cross volunteers were on the scene in Kentucky. But Edwardsville Fire Chief James Whiteford told reporters the operation had turned from rescue to focus only on recovery, fueling fears the toll will rise. 4 were killed in Tennessee and 2 died in Arkansas, while Missouri recorded 2 fatalities. Tornadoes also touched down in Mississippi. And here's an image that shows the large tornado tracking through southeast Missouri near the state line to Tennessee. 4 tornadoes tore through the southeastern U.S. state of Kentucky as several storms ravaged swathes of the country. Let's take a look.
Large tornado. Lots of debris in the air. It's about to cross I-55. This is I-55. Large tornado about to cross I-55. Large tornado. Lots of debris in the air. It's about to cross I-55. This is I-55. Large tornado about to cross I-55.
Meanwhile, residents of Mayfield and Kentucky are trying to find their belongings after their houses were destroyed in ferocious late-season tornadoes that killed dozens across several U.S. states. Again, let's listen in.
I had friends over and everybody, and we were in the basement, and we had all the mattresses I had in the house over us and the kids. And about 11 o'clock, you could hear this really loud, like they've always said, like a train. It's what it sounded like. And I was really lucky because 2 streets over from where I live is just destroyed.
Well, I just come out of the bathroom, and then all of a sudden the walls caved in on me, the ceiling caved in and blew me up onto the floor. I was trapped in a corner under the dining room table as everything was just crashing around me. And I was trying to get to my wife at the other end of the house. I finally crawled out one of the windows and made it around the front. And then the fire department was here, and I was covered with blood. And I got out of there the next morning, walked over here. I still didn't know where my wife was. It was unbelievable. And it was about almost 2 days before I found out my wife was okay. We're homeless, my wife and I, you know. I was just trying to get clothes and important mementos, you know.
Mayfield, a town of about 10,000 near the southern or the westernmost tip of Kentucky, was reduced to matchsticks, its mayor Kathy Onan said. Still, she told NBC on Sunday there's always hope of finding survivors among the missing. And she said, "We hope for a miracle." Stunned and shaken, its residents on Saturday tried to grasp the extent of the damage caused by a series of tornadoes that swept across 6 U.S. states. Emergency responders cleared the roads for traffic, but heaps of rubble remained piled near the sidewalks, making driving slow and difficult. And volunteers were distributing water, food, diapers, and warm clothes to residents ahead of what meteorologists said would be a cold night. More powerful, destructive, and deadlier storms will be the new normal as the effects of climate change take root, according to the top U.S. emergency management official on Sunday after massive tornadoes ravaged 6 states. Meteorologists and other scientists have long warned of the growing intensity of weather events like storms, fires, and flooding. But the crisis hit home in a terrifying way overnight Friday into Saturday when more than 24 twisters raked across large swathes of the American heartland, leaving dozens of people dead, dozens missing, and communities in ruin. This is going to be our new normal, Deanne Criswell, head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, telling CNN State of the Union as she did a round of national Sunday morning talk shows before she headed to Kentucky to assess the damage and help coordinate the federal response. The FEMA chief said the effects that we're seeing from climate change are the crisis of our generation, unquote. Spain now, the body of a man was pulled from a van trapped in floodwaters in northern Spain on Sunday. The second death linked to heavy rains which have caused rivers to burst their banks. Rescuers located the van in the Bidasoa River in the northern Navarra region on Saturday, a day after the 61-year-old was reported missing, according to a police spokesman. Strong currents and poor visibility had prevented them from retrieving his body from the van until Sunday. A 49-year-old woman, meanwhile, died in her car in the Navarra village of San Billy on Friday after a landslide that followed 2 weeks of heavy rains. Now, Greece, too, has been hit by torrential downpours, and a 55-year-old pediatrician mother of 3 was found dead in the north on Sunday, according to local media, after her car was swept away in flooding. Rivers overflowed, cutting off roads and causing damage to houses, crops, and infrastructure in western Greece, as well as Thessaly in the northeast. Because a warmer atmosphere holds more water, climate change increases the risk and intensity of flooding from extreme rainfall. And scientists say built-up urban areas with poor drainage infrastructure are especially vulnerable to heavy downpours. Meanwhile, intense flooding in Brazil has killed at least 3 people. Te Rui Costa says progressively with the reduction of water, we will begin the recovery of the cities and start the reconstruction. That, according to the mayor, more than 5,600 people have been evacuated from their homes. Some 50 municipalities are in an emergency situation due to heavy rains and flooding in the northeastern Brazilian states of Bahia and southeastern state of Minas Gerais. Brazil's government declared a state of emergency in almost 50 cities. According to a Reuters report, experts on Sunday were saying the volcanic eruption on La Palma that has sent spectacular rivers of lava running down the slopes of La Cumbre from nearly 3 months is now the longest running in the island. Red-hot lava from the Cumbre Vieja volcano, which has been erupting since September 19, has been sliding down a cliff into the Atlantic Ocean. And most of the island of around 85,000 people, part of the Canary Islands archipelago of northwestern Africa, has been unaffected by the eruption, with the lava flow concentrated on the western side. The molten rock has covered 1,065 hectares and destroyed nearly 1,500 buildings, mainly homes, according to Copernicus, the European Union satellite monitoring service. Lava has destroyed schools, churches, health centers, and irrigation infrastructure for the island's banana plantations, a key source of jobs, as well as hundreds of homes. The island of La Palma, part of the Canary Islands archipelago of northwestern Africa, is experiencing its 3rd eruption in a century, with previous ones in 1949 and 1971. Rescuers are working to free the body of a pregnant nurse from the rubble of collapsed buildings in Sicily after a massive explosion which killed at least 7 people. Take a look. The blast, likely caused by a gas leak, tore through 4 residential buildings late Saturday in the southern town of Ravanusa, with one survivor describing it as if a bomb had gone off. The blast leveled 4 structures, including a 4-story apartment building in the central residential district of the town of nearly 11,000 inhabitants, according to Italy's Civil Protection Agency. Images from the scene showed a mass of concrete, rubble, wooden beams, and mangled steel in a large empty space, with neighboring buildings charred and damaged. The victims included nurse Celine Pascariello, 30 years old, who was 9 months pregnant and who had been due to give birth next week, according to the Corriere della Sera newspaper. Firefighters continue to battle 2 bushfires burning near the tourist hotspot of Margaret River in Western Australia. After days of sweltering and windy conditions drove the blazes, although no damage to homes were reported. Take a look. Here in the country, a magnitude 5.3 earthquake struck Batangas at 5:12 in the afternoon today, which was also felt in surrounding areas, according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS. In a quake bulletin, PHIVOLCS said that the quake was of tectonic origin and was 99 kilometers deep. The epicenter was located 24 kilometers southwest of Calatagan, Batangas. The quake was felt at intensity 3 in Quezon City and at intensity 2 in San Felipe, Zambales. PHIVOLCS said it was expecting aftershocks. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back. The National Capital Region is now with very low-risk classification for COVID-19 with only 91 new cases reported per day from December 6 to 12, according to the Octa Research Group today. An Octa latest report said the incidence or average daily attack rate, or ADAR, decreased to less than 1 at 0.64 per 100,000 individuals, while the reproduction number was very low at 0.39. It added that NCR's positivity rate is 0.9%. The 13 local government units in the NCR classified as very low risk include Pateros, Caloocan, Las Piñas, Mandaluyong, Parañaque, Marikina, Pasig, Navotas, Valenzuela, San Juan, Manila, Pasay, and Taguig. Among the 13 LGUs, Pateros logged a 100% growth rate with no new infections recorded and a 20% healthcare utilization rate, or HCUR. Meantime, the 4 other LGUs in the region were classified low risk due to their HCURs ranging from 31 to 37% and intensive care unit utilization rate, or ICUR, ranging from 33 to 61%. The 4 LGUs are Muntinlupa, Quezon City, Malabon, and Makati. Muntinlupa logged the highest ICUR at 61%. Meanwhile, to London now, where the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning of a looming tidal wave of Omicron. He also announced he is bringing forward a target to give over 18s a booster jab by 1 month to the end of December. The details from Nicole Salenga from our EBC UK Bureau. Nicole.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Sunday warned of a looming tidal wave of Omicron and brought forward a target to give over 18s a booster jab by 1 month to the end of December.
Because I'm afraid we're now facing an emergency in our battle with the new variant, Omicron. And we must urgently reinforce our wall of vaccine protection to keep our friends and loved ones safe. Earlier today, the UK's 4 chief medical officers raised the COVID alert level to 4, its second highest level, because of the evidence that Omicron is doubling here in the UK every 2 to 3 days. No one should be in any doubt. There is a tidal wave of Omicron coming, and I'm afraid it is now clear that 2 doses of vaccine are simply not enough to give the level of protection we all need. But the good news is that our scientists are confident that with a 3rd dose, a booster dose, we can all bring our level of protection back up.
The increase in the 5-stage COVID alert level from 3 to 4 comes after a further 1,239 confirmed cases of the variant were recorded on Sunday. That brings the total number of UK cases of Omicron to 3,137, a 65% increase from Saturday's total of 1,898. Britain began easing coronavirus restrictions in June, and the alert level was at stage 3, which means the epidemic is in general circulation. Level 4 means transmission is high and pressure on healthcare services is widespread and substantial or rising. The move is designed to reduce pressure on the state-run National Health Service, or NHS, which is dealing with seasonal respiratory infections such as flu. The government had set itself a target of giving everyone aged 18 and over in England a booster jab by the end of January. But Johnson said that date would be brought forward by a month because not having high levels of boosters could overwhelm the NHS and lead sadly to very many deaths. The devolved administration in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, which set health policy, all announced accelerated booster programs. In England, face masks were made compulsory in many indoor public places last Friday, and from Monday, people are being advised to work from home if possible. From Tuesday, fully vaccinated contacts of people who test positive for COVID-19 will be required to take daily lateral flow tests for 7 days. But those who have not had 1 or 2 shots of a COVID vaccine will have to self-isolate for 10 days, Health Secretary Sajid Javid said. Vaccine passports will be introduced in certain settings from Wednesday. Infection rates remain stubbornly high at about 50,000 positive tests per day. In London, Omicron accounts for about a third of all COVID-19 cases. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Nicole Salenga. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Nicole. Here's an update from the United Kingdom. At least 1 person has died in Britain after being infected with the Omicron variant, according to Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday, as the country launched an ambitious COVID booster shot program to stop the virus spread. Britain, among the countries worst hit by the global health crisis since last year, is believed to be the first government to officially announce a death from the virus mutation. On a visit to a vaccination center in West London, Prime Minister Johnson said Omicron accounted for about 40% of the cases in the British capital and hospital admissions were rising. Britain on Sunday sounded the alarm by raising the national COVID alert level because of high levels and rising rates of transmission. In a rare televised address, Prime Minister Johnson said emergency measures were needed to prevent hospitals becoming overwhelmed in the weeks ahead. All adults will now be able to receive a 3rd dose of a COVID vaccine by the end of December after the government brought forward its deadline by 1 month. Now, Canadians could be ringing in the new year with a fifth wave of COVID-19 that, according to the country's top doctor, warning it on Friday. More on that story from Eagle News correspondent Thomas I. Likeness. Thomas.
Within weeks of the calendar rolling over to 2022, the Public Health Agency of Canada says its modeling is predicting daily case counts in the country could exceed 26,000. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Teresa Tam says that's based on the assumption that Omicron becomes the dominant strain of COVID. Tam says it's believed the Omicron variant is 3 times more contagious than the current dominant variant, Delta. And she says if the less contagious Delta remains the dominant variant, there will still be a surge of cases, though not as many. She's suggesting daily case counts could reach 7,000, which is about double of what we are currently seeing. Now, there are some who say although Omicron is more contagious, it produces milder symptoms, so, well, it shouldn't affect our healthcare system as much. But Tam says even though the proportion of Omicron infections that require hospital care is small, the volume of cases will still fill up intensive care units. And there is the problem. Because you see, it's not only COVID-19 patients who require care. They've pushed those requiring other medical care. I'm talking about cancer treatment, elective surgeries, transplants. They've pushed those people onto ever-growing waiting lists. I heard a story this weekend about a woman who had breast cancer that had spread to the liver. Her surgery had been canceled twice because there was no room in the ICU for her. When called a third time for surgery just days ago, she was told it was too late. Her cancer has spread further and there are no more treatment options. So she was sent home to spend her last days with her family. So even if the majority of COVID-19 patients survive, in Canada at least, it comes at a cost to those suffering from other medical conditions. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News International, Alberta, Canada.
In other pandemic news, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has tested positive for COVID-19 on Sunday and was receiving treatment for mild symptoms, according to the presidency in a statement. Now, those who have turned up to demonstrate, Ramaphosa, who is fully vaccinated, began feeling unwell after leaving a state memorial service for former President F.W. de Klerk in Cape Town earlier in the day, but was in good spirits and being monitored by doctors. It said the highly mutated Omicron variant was first detected in South Africa last month and sparked a global panic over fears that it is more contagious than other variants. Ramaphosa would remain in self-isolation in Cape Town for the time being and had delegated all responsibilities to Deputy President David Mabuza for the next week. People who came in contact with the president were advised to watch for symptoms or get tested.
State-sponsored violence continued to ravage communities.
Meanwhile, people are gathering in Vienna's main square to protest against recent COVID-19 measures enforced by the government, including mandatory vaccines by February and restrictions. Take a look. Now, those who have turned up to demonstrate say that, quote, we no longer have a democracy, and lament children being unable to socialize because of their parents' decision not to vaccinate them. Police said an estimated 44,000 people attended the demonstration, the latest in a string of huge weekend protests since Austria last month became the first EU country to say it would make COVID vaccinations mandatory. A partial confinement since last month ends on Sunday for the vaccinated, but those who have not received the required doses will have to remain at home. And here are the other stories making headlines around the world. China says it firmly opposes and strongly condemns U.S. sanctions on Chinese artificial intelligence startup SenseTime, saying it will take effective measures to fight back if necessary. Take a look.
美方基于谎言和虚假信息，再次以所谓新疆人权为由，对中方的有关人员和实体实施制裁，这严重干涉中国内政， 严重违反国际关系基本准则，也严重损害中美关系。中方对此坚决反对，予以强烈谴责。我们敦促美方立即撤销有关的错误决定，停止干涉中国内政、损害中方利益的言行。如果美方执意妄为，中方必将采取有力措施，予以坚决回击。
The U.S. Treasury announced it was blacklisting SenseTime on Friday, saying its facial recognition programs were designed in part to be used against Uyghurs and other mostly Muslim minorities in Xinjiang, where UN experts and researchers estimate more than 1 million people have been incarcerated in prison camps. The startup has now decided to postpone a planned $767 million initial public offering in Hong Kong. Jailed Hong Kong mogul Jimmy Lai said he was proud to be punished as a court handed out fresh jail sentences on Monday to 8 prominent democracy activists for attending a banned Tiananmen vigil. Lai, the 74-year-old owner of the now-shuttered pro-democracy Apple Daily newspaper, was found guilty of unlawful assembly charges alongside former journalist Gwyneth Ho and prominent rights lawyer Chow Hang-tung last week. He was among a group of 8, most of them already behind bars, for protest-related offenses, who were given terms ranging from 4 to 14 months on Monday afternoon. During mitigation on Monday, Lai's lawyer Robert Pang read out a handwritten letter his client had penned from prison, which his team later released to reporters. It said, "If commemorating those who died because of injustice is a crime, then inflict on me that crime and let me suffer the punishment of this crime so I may share the burden and glory of those young men and women who shed their blood on June 4, Lai wrote. Remember those who shed the blood but do not remember the cruelty. May the power of love prevail over the power of destruction." Prominent rights lawyer Chow Hang-tung, who represented herself at the trial, used her mitigation to describe the convictions as, quote, "one step in the systemic erasure of history, both of the Tiananmen massacre and Hong Kong's own history of civil resistance." She said Hong Kong's courts were in effect affirming the unequal power wielded by the government against critics by convicting people like her for taking part in protests. Lai received 13 months while Chow received a year behind bars. President Duterte said the work of the country's long-established democracy will certainly continue despite the nearing end of his 6-year term in 2022 in his intervention at the Summit for Democracy organized by the United States. The president said freedom of expression and of the press in the country are fully enjoyed, while regular transfer of power is guaranteed through free and honest elections. Let's listen in.
The Philippines was the first republic in Asia and the inspiration of all Asian struggles for independence. Today, we have a vibrant democracy and an open and diverse society. Freedom of expression and of the press are fully enjoyed, and the regular transfer of power is guaranteed through free and honest elections. While we are the oldest democracy in Asia, our system of governance is not perfect. Corruption, poverty, and peace and other issues have always been and continue to be our major challenges. They weaken our institutions and deprive many Filipinos of democratic agencies. When I was elected president, I pledged meaningful change. I aspired for a government that really works for the Filipino people, especially the poor and the marginalized. Hard but necessary reforms needed to be made. Deep wounds of divisions needed to be healed, and stark inequalities needed to be redressed. All difficult undertakings, but we did what we could and should. My government also sought to broaden democratic participation through federalism, but my constitutional project did not get Congress support. So be it. I respect the separation of powers vital to democracy.
Malacanang said on Friday that President Duterte's invitation and participation on the summit is in recognition of the existing democracy in the country. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Pangarap ng bawat Pilipino, hangarin ng Northern Cement. Ahon! Bangon! Sulong! Pinalaki ng Northern Cement ang kapasidad ng kanilang planta para steady ang supply ng sementong tigasin. Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro. Ahon! Bangon! Sulong!
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. Business sentiment among Japan's large manufacturers remain cautious about the economy's trajectory due to lingering concerns on the coronavirus and its variants. Dennis Liu reports.
Japan's major manufacturers remain cautious about the economy's trajectory, with business sentiment flat for the quarter as concerns about the pandemic linger. A key survey showed Monday. Among major non-manufacturers, however, there was an improvement in confidence about the world's third largest economy, offering glimmers of hope. The Bank of Japan's Tankan Business Survey, a quarterly poll of about 10,000 companies, showed a reading of plus 18 for major manufacturers, unchanged from the previous quarter and slightly lower than market consensus of plus 19. Among large non-manufacturers, meanwhile, confidence improved to plus 9 from plus 2 in the previous quarter, the sixth consecutive improvement. The short-term business sentiment survey reports the difference between the percentage of firms that are upbeat and those that see conditions as unfavorable. A positive figure means more companies see business conditions as favorable than those that consider them unfavorable. It is considered to be the broadest indicator of how Japan Incorporated is faring. The latest reading comes with concerns over the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Japan has seen a smaller virus outbreak than many countries, with fewer than 18,400 deaths, despite avoiding harsh lockdowns. Emergency virus measures that largely affected bars and restaurants, as well as limiting large events, were in place in parts of the country for much of the year, but were lifted finally in October. To address concerns over the Omicron variant, Japan earlier this month abruptly asked airlines to stop taking all new incoming flight reservations for a month, but later softened the blanket ban to make it easier for citizens to return. Its vaccination program, which began later than in many developed countries and started slowly, has picked up speed, however, with around 78% of the population now fully inoculated. And the government this month started administering the third dose of vaccine, initially targeting health workers. The government has also pledged large stimulus measures in a bid to support economic recovery. This is the latest for now. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this is Dennis Liu. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, Israel's Naftali Bennett arrived in the United Arab Emirates Sunday for the first official visit by a prime minister of the Jewish state after the countries established diplomatic ties last year. Now, the trip announced by Bennett's office comes with Israel making a renewed diplomatic push against international talks which global powers resumed with its arch-foe Iran over the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. Bennett on Monday meets Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan to discuss the deepening ties between Israel and the UAE, especially economic and regional issues, according to the Prime Minister's office. The UAE last year became the third Arab nation to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel after Egypt and Jordan. Bahrain and Morocco then followed as part of a series of deals brokered by then U.S. President Donald Trump. Sudan also agreed to normalize ties with Israel under the Abraham Accords, but full relations have not yet materialized. The agreements were negotiated by Bennett's predecessor, Benjamin Netanyahu, who said they would offer Israel new regional allies against Iran and bolster its diplomatic efforts to stop Tehran from acquiring nuclear weapons. New evidence compiled by the World Health Organization and the World Bank shows that the COVID-19 pandemic is likely to halt 2 decades of global progress towards universal health coverage. Take a look. The organization also revealed that already before the pandemic, more than 500 million people were pushed or further pushed into extreme poverty because they have to pay for health services out of their own pockets, and that the pandemic is likely to make the situation worse. The findings are contained in 2 complementary reports launched on Universal Health Coverage Day, highlighting the devastating impact of COVID-19 on people's ability to obtain health care and pay for it. In 2020, the pandemic disrupted health services and stretched countries' health systems beyond their limits as they struggled to deal with the impact of COVID-19. And as a result, for example, immunization coverage dropped for the first time in 10 years and deaths from TB and malaria increased. The pandemic also triggered the worst economic crisis since the 1930s, making it increasingly difficult for people to pay for care. There is no time to spare, said Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, WHO Director General. All governments, he said, must immediately resume and accelerate efforts to ensure every one of their citizens can access health services without fear of the financial consequences. And this means, he said, strengthening the public spending on health and social support and increasing their focus on primary health care systems that can provide essential care close to home. In other news, the Iglesia Ni Cristo held a simultaneous blood donation drive in Thailand and Vietnam. Here's EBC correspondents Jas Diona from Bangkok, Thailand, and Charlene Navaja from Hanoi, Vietnam.
A simultaneous blood donation event held in Bangkok, Thailand and in Hanoi, Vietnam was joined by members of Iglesia Ni Cristo to heed the call of health authorities in both countries to donate blood and address the supply shortage brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in Bangkok, Thailand, blood donors arrive in Thai Red Cross with high hopes of extending help.
According to Ms. Sira Lakpiakuntod, the chief of the National Blood Center based in Nakhon Ratchasima, they are only able to supply only 30% of the amount requested by hospitals, compared to the 70 to 80% before the outbreak of the pandemic. The scarcity of supply, she added, is due to the disease control restrictions, as well as from the work-from-home setup of the majority of employees and students. Ms. Sira Lak also stated that if this situation continues much longer, lives could be in danger, particularly those patients with blood-related diseases who are in need of 1 to 2 units every 3 to 4 weeks, as well as those patients who will undergo surgery. In the end of her speech, she encourages everyone who are able to donate blood and help save lives. Due to the stated reasons, the Church, with the help of the CMDPS, Christian Medical, Dental, and Paramedical Society, immediately decided to take action and organize this event to heed the call of the government.
So first of all, I prepared for this event by getting enough sleep and also eating a full meal and drinking lots of water as stated by Red Cross. And I am very happy because this is my second time and it always feels good to be donating because I feel like I can be helping lots of people through this activity. And I also thank Red Cross for accommodating us, and also big thanks to the church administration for launching activities like this. And I promise that I will continue to remain united in all the future endeavors that they will launch.
Meanwhile, in Hanoi, Vietnam, our ABC correspondent Charlene Navaja is also in the blood donation event. Tell us more, Charlene.
A severe shortage of blood supply was announced by the National Institute of Hematology and Blood Transfusion here in Hanoi, Vietnam, in which the supply is enough for the use in the next few days due to the restrictions imposed to curb the spread of COVID-19. Now that health protocols have been eased, members of Iglesia Ni Cristo here in Hanoi joined the blood donation program called Volunteer Heart 2021 in Hoan Kiem District Medical Center.
And I'm here in Hanoi at 26 Lương Ngọc Quyến, Tây Hồ, Hanoi. There is a blood donation festival here called Ra Khơi in Vietnamese. It held from 10 December to 11 December. So the festival is for blood donors who is from Vietnam and also from other countries.
The event turned out well. The staff were very accommodating and they implement health protocols carefully, such as social distancing, wearing masks, and medical screening before the blood donation.
I'm very thankful to the church administration as well through Bible study in which they are encouraging people to do such things, especially unity and also brotherhood, whoever you are or wherever you are. So this one is a very good and very wonderful thing for me to give some donations, just like this blood donation to other people here in Vietnam.
God's help and guidance of the church administration, we had a very successful simultaneous blood donation activity in Thailand and in Vietnam. All safety protocols were adhered and we were able to achieve our goal in terms of blood donation. The Church of Christ will not stop doing these activities, no matter what the situation is around the world, because we are doing this first and foremost to fulfill our God-given duty to love our fellow men. To the officers and members of the church who took the time and effort to be here, you know that not one of your sacrifices will be in vain. Our Almighty God will remember your good work and you will receive blessings from Him. With that being said, We commend all your efforts, and may we all continue to unite in all other church activities. To all our fellow men, especially to our kababayans, we hope everyone is safe wherever you are. Should you have the opportunity, you're always welcome to join us in these activities, and together we can make a difference in the lives of our fellow men who are in need of our services. We fully recognize that this will not be possible without the guidance of the church administration. Thank you so much po. Our dear Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, your constant love and dedication to your duty inspires us to continue to serve our Almighty God. It is our promise po to always be united with you in all the activities in the church for our Lord God's glory.
Today's affairs show the strong Christian spirit of the Iglesia Ni Cristo members, their willingness to extend help to their fellow men, especially those who need medical attention. Moreover, their preparedness to immediately respond with no hesitation to the call of the church administration and in the need of the society. The volunteers would go back to their homes happily knowing that their small act of kindness can save lives and create many smiles.
Reporting from Hanoi, Vietnam, I am Charlene Navaja.
Reporting from Bangkok, Thailand, this is Justiona. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, guys. Meanwhile, Miss India won the Miss Universe held in Israel despite boycott calls. Take a look.
One of you is about to become Miss.
Meanwhile, Malacanang today congratulated Cebuana beauty Beatriz Luigi Gomez, who landed among the top 5 contestants in the 70th Miss Universe pageant in Israel. The palace commends Miss Philippines, Beatriz Luigi Gomez, for bringing joy to our people and honor to our country at the 70th Miss Universe competition in Israel, according to presidential spokesperson, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles in a palace statement. Nograles described Gomez as an inspiring figure for her accomplishments even before joining the international pageant. During the question and answer portion, French TV host and Miss Universe 2016, Iris Metaner, who won the crown when the Philippines hosted the pageant, asked Beatriz about her take on mandating a universal vaccination passport. Gomez said, "I believe that public health is everyone's responsibility and to mandate vaccine inoculation is necessary. If mandating vaccine passports would help us in regulating the rollouts of the vaccine and mitigate the situation of the pandemic today, then I would agree on mandating the necessary passport of vaccination," unquote. Gomez, 26, is a community development worker, a Philippine Navy Marines reservist under the 82nd Marine Battalion Reserve of the Naval Reserve Center of Eastern Visayas, and she is an advocate of youth empowerment and has been closely working with children in contact with the law at a juvenile facility called Operation Second Chance of the Department of Social Welfare Services of Cebu City. And congratulations to everybody. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. As I always say, at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles. We'll see you back tomorrow. We live in interesting times.
This program is supported by Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro Northern Cement, Ahon, Bangon, Sulong, and SMC Global Power.